Let's go.
Absolutely awesome, man. I'll tell you what else I'm excited about, and that's Jordan Love. I seen this came across Twitter. I think it was yesterday. Is Jacob Morley, one of the best follows on X in terms of for Packer fans? At Jacob Morley said 3 quarterbacks in NFL history have posted 4,000 plus passing yards and 32 plus passing touchdowns in their first season with multiple starts. All right, Kurt Warner, Patrick Mahomes, and Jordan Love. Though that's the list. That's it. Pretty wild to think about. And again, what's crazy is Jordan Love obviously battling through the injuries last year, still had a pretty solid year in my opinion. I mean, I don't know many quarterbacks that could battle through a knee injury, an arm injury, all in the same year. What he had a groin injury as well,
Yep.
and just continue to go out there and lead his team to 11 wins or 9 wins. Him as the starter, obviously missing the 3 games, but man, I'm really excited about Jordan Love here in the future. I want to get your all's take on that. How do y'all feel about stats like that? Is that something that you just kind of roll your eyes at, or do you? Anytime I see something happen, especially for like the first time, Tim, I'm like, okay, probably need to slow down a minute and check this out and see if this person, this player, whatever the topic is, probably a little bit of a theme there, a running theme, if you will. But I don't know, man. That's good company. You're talking about 2 first ballot Hall of Famers that Jordan Love's in company with right there.
Yeah, absolutely. And big shout out to Jacob Morley again, because like you said, he's a great follow on X. Usually is one of the first to hit you with stats like this, and I don't disregard it. Right? Maybe your gut instinct is to kind of, it's a stat thing. Individual stats, whatever. But at the end of the day, man, like you said, rare air right here. You got a Hall of Famer, Super Bowl champion. You've got a another Super Bowl champion, likely first ballot Hall of Famer. And then you got Jordan Love, who's about to break out in 2025 and become a Super Bowl champion and a future Hall of Famer in his own right. So I think it's awesome to see those numbers, 32 passing TDs or more, over 4K when it comes to passing yards. I would anticipate we're going to see more of the same from Jay Money this year. A guy who had to play behind Aaron for a couple of years, a guy who kind of got cheated out of a lot of preseason action during the COVID years. A guy who got hurt his first year as a starter. We really didn't get to see much. I mean, 2025 is the year for Jay Money, in my opinion. Everything's in front of him right now. And I fully anticipate him to, eclipse the 4,000 mark and, 30 plus tutters this year for sure. Hopefully less than 10 picks too.
Yeah. Nick McSwain in the chat said, do y'all remember after we lost to the Eagles in the playoffs and LaFleur said 2/3 of the interceptions were because wide receivers ran routes incorrectly? That's another thing that came into play. And then you got to take into consideration the drops as well. Now, listen, Jordan wasn't always accurate, so he's got his share of the blame there. Some of those drops were because they were inaccurate passes, but I'm with you. I think that's a great point. As he points out here, Jacob, that obviously the receivers running the wrong routes played a little bit of a role in the numbers being down a bit last year as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that probably leads us to understand why they felt like Matthew Golden was a player that deserved a first overall pick or first round pick for the first time in quite a long time. And, looking at those stats, what's the line? Like there's lies, damn lies, and statistics. But those are pretty easy cut and dry stats right there that kind of show you that he's on a trajectory that not many people have started in their career. So I think it's a pretty darn good sign in my opinion.
Definitely. And when you look at his PFF grades last year, obviously battling through the injuries, 64, 69, 44, and then he goes on a bit of a run here, 72, 72, 74, 68, 73, 63, 77, had his best game in week 14 at Detroit, an 83.8, 66, 68, 72, 61, 54. Obviously did not finish the season on a positive note, but when you look at the overall PFF grades here career-wise, this is where it gets real interesting. I mean, you're talking about minimal snaps in 2022 with a 78. Then in 2023, he has that breakout year on 1,200 snaps, 83.6 with an 83.2 passer grade. And then, of course, in 2024, you've got a 75.8, even battling through the injuries that he dealt with, he still played 932 snaps. There's some people that seem to think that Jordan Love is injury prone. That dude, I think he's the farthest thing from it. The fact that he battled through those injuries last year, an injury prone quarterback would not have played through those injuries. He would not have. So what do you guys think about the PFF grades here? And Yeah, how do you think he'll grade out this year? Because I'm honestly expecting him to get right up there around the 80 mark or eclipse the 80 mark again. And who knows, you might see a career high this year. Tim.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I think 80 PFF grade is, right there where we'd like him to be. Um, Kind of keeping an eye week to week at those passer ratings and things like that, like you say. Um, but there's some truth to the sentiment that we're loaded up on the defensive side of the ball now. I think we're in great hands when it comes to our DC and our position coaches, our personnel. So I think it gives kind of to Dan Orlovsky's point earlier, gives the offense the ability to go ahead and let her rip, right? Go out there and hum that tater, push the ball, be a little bit more aggressive, because if you make a little mistake here and there, you've got a defense that's going to go out there and get the ball back for you. So I fully anticipate Jordan Love to, be fast and loose and feeling comfortable. More than one of the talking heads out there that, we hold their opinion near and dear has said that Jordan looks as good as he's ever looked in this offense when it comes to command of Matt LaFleur's playbook and what we're trying to do out there. So I think physically it's just going to be a matter of him staying healthy and, playing loose, playing free, and, humming that tater down the field, man. We got weapons on offense and defense. So I think Jordan's going to have a great year when it comes to the stats. I would think, on average, a 80 PFF grade or higher is, I think that's fully expectable this year for sure.
And anything over 70, Jacob, obviously is a good year in terms of PFF. What do you think his grade will be if he stays healthy this year, given, the Matthew Golden arrival, Christian Watson getting healthy, hopefully there around week 6 after the bye? What do you think, man?
Yeah, kind of like how Nick McSwain says. I think that it might be a rocky start. McSwain went on to say, to be honest, the start of the season is really an indicator of how the entire season is going to go. It takes like 4 games for the teams to get into their groove. I think that maybe is even more this year, just with the kind of limited practice time and the real game speed that he's had. And Jordan Love kind of seems like he does take sometimes a few weeks to maybe kind of find his groove. But there's just something special about this year where I would think that maybe by 6 or 7 games that he'd have a good solid 75 PFF grade. I'd hope it'd be higher. We could look up and he could be in the high 80s for all I can, tell from what's going on with this offense. But honestly, I'm going to give him a little slack to start the season off just because it's going to be a little rusty, I bet. And I'm not going to start overreacting either way. If he comes out in the first game and it's just a boat race, it's going to be great. Don't get me wrong, but I'm going to actually probably swallow some humble medicine and, just really think that I think what Emilio said the other day about having that 4-week saturation, kind of taking it in chunks like that is a good way to kind of look at the progress of the season overall.
Yeah, I agree. And you look back here to 2023 where he went on that run starting in week 9, 83, 74, 65, 86, 91, 58, 66, 77, 90, 83, 92, and then wrapped up with the 54 there in the playoff game against the 49ers. So it's going to be fun to see how Jordan Love continues to improve as a quarterback here for the Packers. And this is one of those years where you're going to kind of look up and go, okay, man, what is this guy really made of, right? I think we can look back on this season and have a really, really good idea of what type of player he's going to be moving forward for sure. So anything else on Jordan Love, guys, before we move on here?
Yeah, he wears number 10 because he only throws dimes.
There you go. All right, I guess Jacob's out. So let's move it along here as we dive into the next topic. Well, let me get the super chat real quick. I was trying to hold off on it because it goes hand in hand with what we're going to talk about next. Badger Trio with the super chat. Thank you so much, buddy. He says, Lions lost both their OC and DC. They might come out slow. I think there's a realistic shot that they take a pretty significant step back, to be honest with you, Trio. Now, there's pros and cons with new OC and new DC. Are they going to continue to do what they were doing, or do they plan on changing it up, right? And if the Packers have their work cut out for them this week when they're preparing. They've probably been preparing for several weeks now for the Detroit Lions, but they got to decide, do we game plan for what Aaron Glenn did on defense last year and what Ben Johnson did on offense? Or do we try to press into, okay, how will this change with the new OC who came, I think he was in-house. I want to say they went and got the DC, I believe somewhere else. He might've been hired in-house as well, but you got to take everything into account. for sure. I think it's going to be a hell of a ball game, and we're going to dive into a little preview of it right now. Really, really excited to see both these teams get out on the field, though, come Sunday afternoon. What was it, 3:25 kickoff, I believe, Tim? I think we're going to have Jim Nance and Tony Romo on the call. It don't get any better than that, man. It's going to be awesome.
Oh, you got to love it, man. Burlington, Wisconsin's own Tony Romo calling the game. You got to love it.
That's right. Jerry with the super chat. Thank you, Jerry. Appreciate you so much. I'm just afraid Jordan won't be able to get into rhythm in the beginning of that first game. And that's a realistic concern. You know, I think every team deals with that, Jerry, especially when you haven't played a lot in the preseason and you've got new targets, you know, and the wide receiver room is banged up. That's another reason why they were so aggressive and decided to go get Micah Parsons. Tim, is they're kind of looking up, going, okay, this receiving, we're probably going to start off a little slow on offense, which typically happens across the league anyway. Defenses typically have the upper hand for the first few weeks, if I remember correctly. Yeah. So I think Jerry brings up a good point here. I think the key, though, Tim, to avoiding what Jerry's worried about is protect the freaking football. Don't go out there and try to win it on every play. I heard Dan Orlovsky up. If you guys didn't see that video, I posted a Stephen A. Smith's reaction to Micah Parsons' trade, and then Dan Orlovsky's reaction. And Dan Orlovsky said to him, he was like, yeah, I think what this is going to allow Green Bay to do is be more aggressive on offense, because if you turn the ball over, it's not a big deal. You got an awesome defense to get it back. And I'm going, please, God, shut up. What are you talking about? What coach have you ever heard say, yeah, I'm excited about being aggressive on offense because if we turn the ball over, our defense is going to get it back for us? That's just not how coaches think, you know?
No, I agree. But I agree with the sentiment too. Like, aggressive is kind of it's a loose term, right? It depends on how you look at that. I think to Jerry's point, having a little bit of fear that, Jordan might struggle to get in a rhythm a little early. And to your point that, so do a lot of guys week one, right? You're coming out of the gate, whether or not you had a full preseason or not. Getting your wheels underneath you kind of takes a few series before you feel like you're in a rhythm. But I would agree with Orlovsky's point to an extent, meaning, you can be aggressive on offense in a lot of different ways, right? That doesn't mean taking shot plays down the field every single time. Maybe we see a situation where we press into that run game early and we use that run game to set up our play action, our RPO game, feed the pass game off the run game early, and you can still be aggressive without just taking shots all the time, right?
Yeah, definitely. And we kind of talked about that a little bit after he made that comment. I'm okay with coming out on a first down because you feel more confident in your defense and saying, all right, let's try to get them to load the box against Josh Jacobs and catch a one-on-one matchup to take a shot. That's great. But the way he made it sound was like playing reckless almost, that's just, crazy. There's a difference between being aggressive and being stupid. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Exactly. Aggressive and reckless, right? Reckless is just dialing up shot after shot and letting that secondary camp out and pick you off all day, right? You got to mix it up.
Definitely. And again, Jerry, thank you so much for that super chat.